Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. I'm Adam Smith. I'm the Program Director for Dementia Researcher. And today, and I'm delighted to be hosting this live stream. Today, I'm joined by two fantastic guests from the Scottish Neuroprogressive and Dementia Network. This network is funded by the Chief Scientist Office in Scotland, and it plays a vital role in fostering dementia research across Scotland. It has a key focus on improving access to clinical trials for both people in urban and rural communities and supporting researchers to find the people they need quickly and to ensure delivery of clinical and care research. And today I'm lucky enough to have Dr. Emma Law with me. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
And Jacqueline Kerr. Hi, Jacqueline. Jacqui.
Hi.
Jacqui is the network manager, and together they're going to share how the network helps connect people living with dementia to neuroprogressive diseases research at the cutting edge. I mean, and across the board, from both care research to drug trials and everything in between, whilst also supporting researchers across the NHS to find the people that they need. So we're going to start. They're going to give an initial short talk to present the network and let you know what that does. And then afterwards, we're going to have a chance to, I've got some questions that I'm going to ask, and you're welcome to ask yours as well. The whole point of this really is to highlight some of the brilliant work that's happening across Scotland, but also for researchers listening to learn how the network can potentially support you to find people for your studies. And for anybody who's watching, who's living with dementia or his family is affected by that, how you might be able to support some of the important research that's going on across Scotland or elsewhere in the world. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn my camera off now, and I'm going to turn Jacqui and Emma's slides on, and you can introduce yourselves and present away. Is that okay?
That's grand. Thank you.
Yep,
Great.
thank you.
I'll start off. So, hi, I'm Emma Law, and I am the Neuroprogressive and Dementia Network Strategic Manager, and I also co-chair Enrich Scotland, which is enabling research in care homes in Scotland. And Jacqui?
Hi, I'm Jacqui Kerr. I'm the network manager for the Neuroprogressive and Dementia Network, so I oversee all of the sites across Scotland and any research that we do. That's great. I'm going to, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to Dementia Researcher for providing us a platform to let you know who we are and what we do. So we're going to go through some slides just to kind of give you a bit of an overview, and then we can go into a bit more detail later on in the podcast. So who are we? We're funded by the Chief Scientist Office, and we're part of NHS Research Scotland. We were founded in 2009, and early on our remit was to enrol people onto a research register. But it was, time went on, and in 2015, we then were asked by the Chief Scientist Office to actually facilitate and manage clinical trials across Scotland. So in 2015, we started doing commercial and academic studies. We have a presence in every mainland health board in Scotland, to include Aberdeen, Glasgow, Dundee, and Edinburgh. And the main boards are where we host most of our complex research studies, but we also have representation in some smaller boards as well. We also have, at the heart of what we do, is our Partners in Research, which is the name they gave themselves for the patient and public involvement group that we have in the network. So they're very much at the heart of what we do, and everything we starts with Partners in Research. We have partnership working with charities such as Alzheimer's Scotland. We also have our permission to contact and join dementia research, which we use for our research participants. And again, we'll talk about that a wee bit more in detail later on. We try and make sure we have a balance of commercial and academic studies, and we cover all neuroprogressive conditions and dementia, which again, you'll find out later on. We also host and we manage the Alzheimer's Scotland Dementia Brain Tissue Bank in partnership with the University of Edinburgh. Okay, next slide, please. drama. So, oh, I think it's maybe skipped a wee bit. So it's okay, we'll talk about partners in research. It's fine. So partners in research, like I said, that's at the heart of what we do in the network. Anything that we do, such as leaflets or questionnaires, or it goes to partners in research because they are, we value everyone's opinion, and they are at the heart of what we do. So we are very fortunate to have a really fantastic lead in our partners in research team, Dr. Rosalie Ashworth, and she is a driving force and has taken it to unsurmountable levels at the moment. She's such a fantastic driver and a support of partners in research. She is engaging with participants who come along on either a weekly basis or the drop-ins, and they cover things such as patient information leaflets. Researchers contact them, ask them about their protocols. They've also co-produced a book which was called Challenging Assumptions in Dementia, which I think has got over 13,000 free downloads as of last week. So it's been it was a really popular book, and the teamwork and the collaboration between the researchers and the people with the lived experience with dementia really put their heart and soul into actually producing the book. So they do the PPI input requests, and they really are a really incredible bunch who are very driven at what they do. And they've recently set up another partners in research group that was more Parkinson's disease focused. So they're looking at developing a resource for people who, before they join a trial, what happens during a trial, and then after the trial, what happens when someone leaves a trial, when they feel as if there's what's left. So we're hoping to roll that out, and it's one of these resources that could be rolled out across any of the disease areas. So that's something that we're looking at. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of Rosie. She is, like I said, she's a driving force of partners in research, and when you see her with her collaborators and her co-producers, that you can see the engagement they all have, and they're so driven to actually move things forward. That is a picture of the book. That QR code in the middle of your screen will take you directly to the book, and you can get a free download of that. Obviously, this is the ethos of the partners in research group. Obviously, they deal with public engagement, research priorities, research ethics, making sure there's equitable access, and obviously research and funding, because we can't do anything without funding. So that's one of the things that Rosie is really driven with as well. Next slide, please.
This is where I'm going to come in and tell you about the work that we're doing around underserved groups. And the reason that we're working with underserved groups is because in clinical research, it has been widely recognised that it tends to be the white middle-class people who put themselves forward for research. That's great. That's our bread and butter people. But it means that a lot of research doesn't cover the whole spectrum of people living in our communities. So part of the work that I'm doing is looking at how do we include some of these other underserved groups in research. So a lot of work around bringing in minority ethnic groups, and I just had an email conversation today, Teams conversation, I should say, with somebody from University West of Scotland who's very keen to help. The Travelling Gypsy community, again, I had a talk today, another Teams meeting with somebody who's from the Travelling Gypsy community who is very keen the door is wide open, as she says, looking at how do we bring in the LGBTQI plus, and Alzheimer's Europe conference last week was really helpful with having some more contacts with people. Remote and rural, that's something that we've all been working on. How do we bring in people who live on in the Highlands of Scotland, on islands? And we're going to go into more detail later on about a very successful trip that we did earlier in the year, where we visited, we went to Ullapool in the Highlands, and then we went across to the Isle of Lewis and Stornoway, and how we've managed to include Stornoway in a particular trial. But we'll talk about that later. And then care homes, and I'll go into a bit more detail about care homes. The pinky coloured ones are the ones that I'm working on. The white coloured ones, so low socioeconomic status and educationally disadvantaged, English not first language. These are ones that I will be working on within the next year. It's a massive undertaking. That's one of the problems that I'm having. It's so big. Anyway, that's underserved groups. Next slide, please. So one of the easy wins for us in the network is Enrich Scotland, and that's enabling research in care homes in Scotland. And so far we've got 400, over 400, I think 404 was the last figure I was given, of care homes who have actually signed up to be research ready. And to be research ready, it means they would be willing to be contacted by a researcher. So it means that when researchers come to us with studies and they want to involve care homes in their studies, we immediately have 400 care homes who have already said they'd be willing to be part of this. And we have enabled 60 studies so far to be taken part in care homes in Scotland. So that's it's worked really, really very well. So that's part of the infrastructure that we see is very important in Scotland, that it's not just the research sort of immediately research ready groups, but for anybody who is interested in being part of research, no matter where you live, you should have access to research. Next slide. We're going to talk about how we got on at the Western Isles. I'm not going to go into that into any detail, but we did do this visit, and Jacqui's going to tell you all about where that's led us to. Next slide. So confident conversations, again, this is another sort of outreach work that we've done, and confident conversations about research with Alzheimer's Scotland. So Alzheimer's Scotland and our network have worked together to look at how do we get people into research? Because one of the hardest things in research is recruitment. And how do you get recruitment? By telling people about what's going on out there in the research world. So we did this joint working with Alzheimer's Scotland, and we provided this confident conversations training for all staff about how to start the research conversation with people that they were currently working with. And what we did was we came up with this toolkit, which I think is the next slide. And the toolkit talks about the different things that people could access. So somebody said, I would like to be part of that research. We have given them the confidence to be able to say, well, I know the people who to contact. I know how to get you into that research if you're interested. So that's what Confident Conversations is all about. And we've had some fantastic feedback about the work we've done. We've trained around about 180 people so far, and we're widening the access to NHS staff because the NHS staff are now saying, we want that. We want to know how to talk to people about research. So next slide, please. So this is the toolkit that we have at the moment. We'd be happy to expand the toolkit, but this is where we started out 2 years ago. And we talk about the brain tissue bank. We talk about joint dementia research. We talk about our own permission to contact, which is the one with the QR code against it. We talk about Enrich Scotland and how we could do research in care homes. And we also talk about the partners in research and how if you don't feel you're quite ready for research, or if you're a carer of somebody, but you want to be part of research, then Partners in Research is for you. Next slide. Jacqui.
Yes, so this is our permission to contact register. Again, I'll go into a bit more detail about it later, but we developed it in 2020 because we recognise recruitment to studies, as is all across UK, can be a difficult pathway to navigate. So we developed this permission to contact, and that's basically what it does. It gives the person the permission for us to contact them for any research that may be in their area. And we ask them to fill in their name, their date of birth, and we've got all sorts of diagnoses ranging from no diagnosis to mild cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's, vascular, right through to Parkinson's and Huntington's. We are redeveloping it just now because we're adding on some more categories to it, which is going to be really, really helpful, because obviously we felt as if it needs a bit more, so we're actually obviously working on that. We asked them to give us the preferred method of contact, because people maybe don't use email, or they maybe don't actually want you to phone them, so we asked them for their address. We also asked them for them to agree for us to sharing, having their information, if we can look on their health records, because one of the things we're really keen on is making sure we have the right person for the right study. So we do a lot of pre-screening before we would even consider contacting someone, because the last thing we want to do is oversaturate someone with phone calls about any studies that's coming through. So we make sure we have the right person for the studies. So you can actually either sign up using the paper form, which is this trifold here, and we also have an online version as well, which is a QR code in the corner there, and that will take you directly to our sign up page. On sign up, what you would do is you get an email or a letter from our administrator with a bit of information about the network, and almost like a welcome letter, and this is done, and you'll be sent a newsletter just to let you know what kind of information is going on, what kind of research, is going on in your area at that time. I think my last count, from the last few days, I think we had nearly 900 people on a permission to contact, which is a massive feat, for us, the country of Scotland, to have 900 people signed up. And so we're keen to keep this going. And again, I'll get into a bit more detail about that later on. Next slide, please. So this is just a copy of the online form. And when someone signs up, obviously we are data protection and GDPR. So any information that's gathered and stored is stored in like a triple firewalled NHS is in Dundee, and it's held there. And it's only people who have specific access, like myself, can actually access it. Nobody can have access other than the people who have been granted access, so nobody can just come in and have a look. So we're very careful about our GDPR and maintaining confidentiality. Okay, next slide, please. So this was another book. We're very fortunate to have really clever people in who we work with. So Dr. Tom Russ, who's our network champion, he wrote this book, Frequently Asked Questions on Dementia. And he went down to London because it was all part of, they don't do it, I believe, in Scotland, but they do it down in England. So he went down to Downing Street, and his book is now on every library and down south. So what he's been trying to do is anytime we visit somewhere, he'll take a copy of his book and pop it onto their library list, and there's a copy in every. We're trying to get it in Scotland, but at the moment it's just, these are fortunate and down south to have this, this wonderful idea where the books are given out. So we are trying to mimic that, but it's in a smaller scale, because obviously I don't know how much traveling Tom does with his books, so we'll see how many. But we have left one in Stornoway. We took one to Stornoway with us, and we've just took copies of the book wherever we go. So really worthwhile book, to download. I think you obviously have to pay for this one, but you can get it free in libraries. So that's another book that Tom has written. So next slide, please. So I think it's now time for any questions for anyone. Thank you for listening to Emma and I and looking at our presentation. I think Adam is now going to just fire some questions at us.
I am. Well, I hope it's not just me that's going to ask questions. So anybody who's watching, whether you're watching on, if you're watching on X, you can post if you click on the video, you can post your questions in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, just post your questions in the comments. And some of those, or on Facebook as well, these feed through into the questions here on the screen, and we can make sure we get answers for those. But brilliant talk. Thank you so much. You're doing so much more than I even knew, particularly kind of all the outreach work into the communities and care homes, and the kind of, I love the confident conversations part. And anybody who's watching probably already knows that we've got a new community app which has this ability for us to create courses, and I'd love to talk to you more about how we could maybe make that into a course into our community space, because I think there are so many researchers that would benefit for that, or find themselves suddenly a little bit out of their depth when either in a clinical setting when they want to raise the question about research, or even just doing science communication things, when they're going out to talk about their research, people do approach afterwards, don't they, and ask questions about dementia, and being able to comfortably talk about that and deal with that, I think, is an important aspect.
I think we've had the feedback that we've had is when we start the course, we tend to run it over a day, and when we start the day, we say, so could you mark yourselves 1 out of 10? How much do you know about research? And people tend to be 1s or 2s. You get the odd 5, 6, but 1s or 2s. By the end of the day, they're all up at 6, 7s, 8s. So, and they just love it. People love hearing about research, what's going on, but also to learn about why it's important. What's the point of talking to people about research? What would it gain? All the different aspects that we talk about. So people love it. They absolutely love it.
I think it is important, isn't it? Because there's always seems to be this gap. I mean, every survey that the NIHR in England has done, or particularly after COVID as well, all the survey results we saw was that people are incredibly supportive of research and they do want to participate. However, then when you look at the engagement rates in some registers and actual participation, there's a gap between that. And I think it's because, we do have to get better at embedding that discussion about research into normal care services. I mean, they do this incredibly well in some other disease areas like cancer, for example, where it's really just a normal part of care. But in neurodegenerative diseases, it seems to be less so. So I think that helped. I've got some questions. So a reminder again, do post your questions below, but I'm going to ask some questions in hopefully what appears to be a fairly logical order. And you're both welcome to answer these, or whoever knows best. So can you share some examples of how your network has ensured that people in rural communities are more able to participate in clinical trials? Because Scotland is a huge place, right? And you want to be able to reach out into those places.
I think Jacqui can answer that one with a particular study that we have. Jacqui.
So at the heart of what the network does is we always say everyone should have the opportunity to take part in research and make the choice themselves, because if they don't know the research is out there, then they won't know. So we obviously, with our permission to contact, we do a lot of promotions work and things as well. We go to different areas, different teams, communities, outreach, and with Emma's new role in Underserved, obviously we're reaching a lot more groups in different areas. So for the rural area, we in recent times, obviously it has been a more urban focus, but in recent times the network obviously recognised that we were missing out people from rural areas, and there are no excuses, they just were missing them out. So last year, the sort of first outreach that we did was Emma and Tom went to the Shetland Islands and met with clinicians and people with lived experience, community groups, and that was so successful. We had some sign-ups as far away as Shetland, and some of the Shetland participants actually take part not in a dementia study, but they're actually taking part in a motor neuron disease study. So we are, reaching out there, we are signing people up and letting them know about research, and they're actually taking part in research. So earlier this year, Emma, Tom and I went out to, as you said, we went to Stornoway and Ullapool. And again, it's such a very engaging group of people, and with people with experience, community groups, from all different neurodegenerative disease areas, and they were all really keen. They all want to take part in research, but having the opportunity until now has obviously bypassed them. So we are going to be taking part, one of the sites for the readout study, which is a study for the blood biomarker for University of Oxford and Vanessa Raymond. So we have we're so looking forward to it. But the Western Isles is going to be a site for the readout study, because we have to show that this blood biomarker is going to work anywhere, is going to work in the furthest away in Scotland, because they have to know when the blood biomarker test is taken when it goes to get analysed, is it going to reach it in time? Is it going to reach that at the lab in time? So we have to look at all these things, because there's no point in bringing up, researching a blood biomarker if it's not going to work everywhere in the UK. So we're really fortunate. The Western Isles team are so engaged, and we're getting people involved. We spoke with the post-diagnostic nurses in Western Isles, who are really keen to actually be the researcher part of it. They're keen because you don't have to have a medical degree to be a PI on the study. There's certain different aspects of it that they can actually do. So, we've got people in Western Isles, and we're really keen to be involved and get more rural areas involved as well. So maybe next year we may get to Orkney. We don't know that yet, but that's one of our plans, to go to Orkney next year, just to try and reach out as far afield as well. But we also have a team in Grampian, and we have a representation in Inverness as well. So we do have sites across Scotland who can work with the rural areas, including the borders as well. So you're right, Scotland is a very vast area, but we are making headway, and we're hopefully, I'll be able to feed back to you once the study's ongoing, how the Western Isles are getting on with doing the study.
And I think that's a brilliant approach as well, isn't it? Because I think today we're drawn towards technology solutions for this, which does mean that we tend to go towards we tend to just say, oh, well, that's online. And I think that that you're going out into communities and physically holding these events. And if I picked up rightly from slides, you have this kind of distributed team of people as well that cover all regions of Scotland. And with your initiatives like Better Conversations, is making sure that that's routinely embedded into those local NHS services. So it doesn't mean that you have to always be there all the time to get that involvement from people.
Mm-hmm.
And the blood biomarker study as well, I think that's brilliant, because I think you'll learn, won't you? You'll learn from delivering that service, from delivering that research study, some experience that will then feed through if that becomes part of normal NHS care. We've had with us a talk on our YouTube channel talking about how they, for example, can collect blood tests on it's a bit like blotting paper. They're going to hate me for saying this. Sorry, Amanda. So you can take dry blood samples that can be reconstituted back, and that these are things that can go through the post and stuff like that. Is brilliant. And what better place to test that than in Scotland?
Exactly.
So how do you, I don't know if you could take, I touched on there that the service is integrated with dementia care and diagnostic systems. How does that practically work? And does that then knock on into research delivery? So say one of those people in the Western Isles says, I want to participate in this trial. Do the researchers have to go to the Western Isles? Do you help just find the people, or does that include delivery of the studies?
I think one of the things we are going to be helping out and supporting is like training with any assessments are needing done, because I don't think a lot of the folks in Western Isles have had the opportunity to do. Whereas we don't know what the actual assessments are at the moment. We're going to offer the support to do the research, the actual assessments. We support them by, obviously it's very difficult because obviously where they are, but we're really keen to maintain that support, and we do these via Teams. In the more local areas, we're very fortunate that our consultants and our memory clinics, we are embedded in these areas, and for recruitment to trials, they very readily give out our permission to contact leaflets and their consultant letters. They put our posters up. So they're very embedded in what we do as well, and they're very driven and making sure that people are involved in research. A lot of the consultants we are aware of and we work with are really keen for people to be involved, and we're lucky to have that, because obviously in other areas they might not have that, but we're lucky that we've got very engaging consultants who are really keen for people to take part. For instance, Dr. Tom Russ, our network champion, he actually works in one of the memory clinics, and he's been very much a driving force in his area to get people involved. For instance, we recently piloted text messaging, when the 4, it's only went out to 4 so far, but it's Northwest Edinburgh. And what we did was we pulled together a small text message, would you be interested in taking part in research? And that went out to 4 GP practices, and within a week we had about 120, 130 responses for people who want to take part. So we're really embedded in the NHS. So this was via the NHS structure. So we're hoping that will be able to roll that out to other sites. But that was just a pilot to see how that would work, and it did work. Not a high percentage of people didn't really have a diagnosis, but it's like healthy volunteers are people of the future. So it's good that we've got so much interest in what we're doing in Scotland.
Before I ask my follow-up question, did you have anything to add to that, Emma? No?
No.
It's okay. So I'm interested too. It's kind of a two-part question then. So if somebody were to complete your consent to contact form, is that, I mean, practically, what does that mean? Is that simply then that if a study comes along, they might be contacted, or does that extend to other activities as well? So say a study is looking for some feedback on a protocol, or is looking for a patient, somebody living with dementia to kind of consult or advise on their study. Is that a mechanism to do both those things?
Yes. So when the permission to contact is filled out, like I said, they always get a welcome letter with a list of all the ways they can be part of research, including clinical trials, partners in research group, enabling care home research. So the options are given to them at that point of time. And what will happen is
just getting news about what's going on.
Yes, they get newsletters. Yep, they get newsletters about different researchers going on in their area. And if they go onto the NDN website, they can obviously find out more of what's going on in different regions as well, because the NDN website has all the studies that's going on just now across Scotland.
And so practically, if you're in a more rural community and you tick that box to say, I want to participate in a trial, I'm guessing that there are some trials where they are going to have to go travel to a trial site that might be in a city nearby, but there'll be some that they can do from home. And how does the network kind of support that process? I mean, do you have people you could send out to them to do certain things at home, or do you help people come to sites if they need to?
Yes, I mean, some of the visits, for example, the person in Shetland who's part of the motor neuron disease study, sometimes their visits are remote and they can be done via a Teams, but it's like questionnaires. But they do, sometimes the staff from Grampian will go and visit and complete the visit, but we try our best to make sure the person's not, to make sure that their visits are as easy for them as possible, and we go out of our way to make sure we make that happen.
So that brings me nicely into my next question, which is, how does the network, I mean, you mentioned a few of your partners in your slides, like Alzheimer's Scotland, for example, and how does the network collaborate with other partners across Scotland?
I think I'd quite like to pick that one up, is that if anybody comes on to our permission to contact, they also get access to join Dementia Research. So it widens out the access that they have. It's slightly going back to what the previous question. Anybody who takes part in our studies, we ensure that we negotiate with the pharma companies, if it's a pharmaceutical study, that there's money for travel. And sometimes there's money for travel and overnight accommodation, so that people can travel from rural areas, and they'll come down with their study partner and stay overnight in a hotel somewhere close to the main centres, if it's one of the big pharmaceutical studies that's being run. So back to the question about the charities and how we ensure that we sort of keep in touch with charities. We had our conference where we invited the charity CEOs to talk, plus somebody who was a person living with the condition at our conference. And we try to keep an active link to the charities. So Parkinson's UK, we've got a lot going on in Parkinson's at the moment. Parkinson's UK bracket Scotland, very involved in the work that we're doing. Alzheimer's Scotland, we have regular meetings with Alzheimer's Scotland. So I suppose that's what we try
Everybody
to do.
buys into this kind of objective.
Yeah.
Don't they? I would say it's on everybody's agenda now. Is this promoting research participation?
Exactly.
And it's something I know. I was at a meeting yesterday that the government's very interested in as well, because they want to make sure that people living in the UK kind of contributes to the UK economy as well as helping people living with dementia. We've talked a lot about those kind of big studies at the moment, of kind of pharma trials and some of those big trials, but a lot of people who use Dementia Researcher Service, and a lot of people who'll be watching, will be PhD students or early stage postdocs that are doing kind of university based research that might be in care homes or be their PhD study. Can the network support those kind of studies as well?
We can certainly support studies that are in care homes, because we don't have any commercial trials in care homes. All the trials that we've had so far, although there is a potential commercial trial coming off, have been academic studies. And in care homes, we welcome any researchers who are interested in care home research. We do have a pro forma that people have to fill out to make sure that they have, ethical approval. Do they have funding? All that kind of stuff. If it's a PhD student, we can help with recruitment and link them up to the care homes. We can also have help with the staff that we have employed, who are employed solely to liaise with care homes and with researchers, and they can also help the research to actually be done. So in that sense, we've got it. For the permission to contact in the general studies, it's not quite as simple. So Jacqui, you can take it from there.
Yeah, so obviously because of GDPR, like I said, about permission to contact and the actual database, the only people who have access to it will access it, and we have to obviously keep that. So if a PhD student has a study that they're wanting to do, what we have been tended to do is ask them to send us an abstract of what the study is, what their inclusion exclusion criteria is, and we will add that to our newsletter, and that will go out to everyone who's signed up to our permission to contact, rather than giving them a list of names. We just couldn't do that. So that's the best way forward for that for us, was highlighting their study on our newsletter, which we've done that the past few times as well.
Which is great, isn't it? I think people are, being able to give people that option to approach them. So care home studies and academic studies, fill in the pro forma, come to you and ask, and essentially you'll get back and work out which way you can support them, whether that's putting them in touch or. And so does that count for researchers in England as well? I mean, if there are researchers based in England that are looking for people living in Scotland, maybe to do a comparison, can you support researchers in other parts of the country, in other parts of the UK?
We'd have to make sure that their ethics covers Scotland, but usually it does. If it doesn't, we say go and make sure it does. And absolutely.
Brilliant. I mean, because I think we've seen a lot more, particularly care home research and community kind of care. And I know we've done some podcast series in the last few months with these NIHR DEMCOM fellows, and there are lots of PhD students about to be starting through Alzheimer's Society's new doctoral training center program. Knowing that they have this availability, that you can provide this conduit to people living with dementia across Scotland, and I'm sure people living in Scotland as well, the more studies that they have the opportunity to participate in, that's the whole point, isn't it? People don't sign up to this to then not get contacted, which I think is one of the I remember from my joint dementia research days, that you'd rather have more than less. I mean, there are some people that are more researched than other people, but might get a little bit overwhelmed by the requests. So, and I suppose it's great because you can be gatekeepers then to make sure that you balance that. So anybody who's watching, whether you're in England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, if you have ethics on your study that covers Scotland and you're looking for participants, you're welcome to contact the network, who will see how they can help you. And I'm going to flag up on the screen again. We've got a QR code that will take you to the network, but we'll also post links in the show notes. Just a reminder that if you have questions, if you're watching we've got nearly 100 people watching. If you're asking questions, if you have questions of your own, please do post them in your chats, and I'll jump across to those chat areas to see if we've got any, and I'll put those to Emma and Jacqui for you. The other studies, of course, yeah, I mean, we've had some big documentaries, some big TV shows in the last few months, which have talked about these groundbreaking new treatments and groundbreaking new drugs that are coming through. I mean, are they also taking kind of place in Scotland? Have you got any examples of some of those groundbreaking research that the network has supported in the last few months?
We unfortunately weren't involved in lecanemab. We were involved in aducanumab, but obviously that's not. That was a very big study across Scotland, but we obviously it's not been allowed approved in UK. So, but it gave us a taste of, because that was sort of one of the, when we moved from just being the register to being involved in research, that was one of the very first big complex studies that we did in the network, and it was really I really enjoyed doing that. I've worked in research since 2006, so being involved in complex studies, was my bread and butter. But from a lecanemab point of view, we weren't selected as sites in Scotland. I'm not sure why they left Scotland out. So anyway.
But that's just one, aren't there? I mean, there are so many now and so many going forward. So the network does support those new drug trials.
Yes, very much so. And our 4 main sites, where the hubs are, they facilitate the more complex studies. They've got access to the CRFs, everything they need, imaging. So we tend to do the more complex studies in our 4 main sites. Up and coming studies, like I said, I've mentioned Readout, which is going to be absolutely huge. We're also doing ADAPT, which is another blood biomarker study with UCL. That's probably coming early next year. More recently, obviously it's not linked to dementia, but one of our Dundee site was part of a Parkinson's study called ProGeodopa, and that was actually now licensed to be used in NHS. So we do work on really a lot of groundbreaking research, and onwards and upwards, with everything else that's coming. So yeah.
And one of the great things about that being integrated with the NHS is that you've got all those facilities there, that you've got the care, the support, the diagnostics and things that you need on hand. Because I know that there's kind of, I know from my experience on patient and public involvement that there's 2 camps, aren't there? There are people who absolutely want to try out the new drugs. And so the NHS does provide a vehicle for you to potentially get involved in those trials. And then lots of people who just don't want to try that. They'd rather have some of those other therapy options or community support that comes. And great that the network does both. Emma, you looked like you had something to say.
Just having worked in the network for, I don't know, for 14 years, 15 years.
Yeah, we've been around about the same length of time.
Yes. Seeing it sort of starting off with, it started off as a register and moving on to some of the really complex studies that are... You're sort of screening 10 people, perhaps 1 person of the people that you screen get through. Very complex, very in-depth studies. But I think it's important to stress that we're all NHS staff. We don't make any money from these studies. Any sort of extra money goes straight back into the pot to fund more research staff. That's where our money gets spent. And what we want to see is more people coming into these studies, and the only way that we can do that is by getting people to sign up to permission to contact. So as soon as the studies come on, we've got a big group of people that we can then go out and say, this might suit you. We do this pre-screening to make sure that if somebody with diabetes, for example, was on our permission to contact and that was an exclusion criteria, we wouldn't contact that person because it would just set up false hope. And what we try to do is to make sure the people that we contact are the people who are going to be eligible for the studies. So I'm talking about the big pharmaceutical studies, and we've done some of the really big ones that are out there now.
We were talking
Yeah.
about this off air earlier, weren't we? That I think
Yeah.
that consent to contact is particularly important because with these large pharmaceutical companies studies, when they're choosing sites, they kind of the places they go to are the places that they think are going to find people quickly, be
Yeah.
able to screen people effectively, and to be able to support them through that the life of that trial. And of course, the NHS has a brilliant track record of being able to do that effectively. And of course, we've got the new trials network coming as soon, which anybody who's watched this, Kath Mummery and is leading that work. And I think that's going to have sites everywhere, particularly to help those earlier phase trials. And we're going to be part of that. I mean, we're supporting the community. Dementia Researcher is supporting the community part of that to be able to help bring more trialists into a place where they can support each other, but also encourage more NHS staff. I think this is another message that we've not touched upon so much today. But I mean, there's a real shortage of NHS staff who are getting involved in research delivery, not necessarily as themselves as academics, but as supporting the delivery of trials, whether you're an occupational therapist, physio, speech and language therapist, nurse, phlebotomist, all the different kind of healthcare professionals. We need more of them to get involved in that research process. Psychologists, raters. You've written a blog for us on raters, haven't you? And there's a whole new rater program that the NIHR started, I've seen, to try and get more.
Yes.
Raters are somebody that kind of work on drug trials, for those who aren't familiar.
So in the network, we had the first psychology graduate who then became I can't actually remember the name of the overarching
Clinical
body, but she was
clinical research practitioner.
Yes, she's the first clinical research practitioner in Scotland, and she worked in our network. So Tiffany,
I've seen that.
Stewart.
We've advertised a few of those roles recently. It's a new role.
Yes, it is. And it was because generally it's nurses who come in to do research, to become research practitioners. But there she was with her psychology degree. She's not a nurse, but she has everything to offer that a nurse would have. And she was also a phlebotomist in Nine Wells, so used to take blood every weekend. So there she is. I mean, she was the first in Scotland, and she worked for us. So that was wonderful. She still works for us, by the way.
So that's another message. So if you're an NHS professional watching this in Scotland, whether you're a phlebotomist or a clinician of some other kind, a nurse, a speech and language therapist, physio, OT, whatever it is, I'm sure you can. Would you be happy for those people to contact you for a little bit of mentoring and advice about how they might kind of move their careers in a research direction?
Of course.
Brilliant. Well, you can drop a comment before we can put you in touch with Emma. And Emma's also in our community. If you join the Dementia Researcher community app and download that from your app store, you'll find a directory of people, and you can find Emma in there as well to get in touch. What do you think? I mean, we're kind of coming into the last kind of 5-10 minutes of the live stream today. Reminder, do ask questions if you have them. What do you see as the biggest challenges ahead for kind of ensuring equitable access to research?
I would say recruitment. So that's why we're really keen to promote and make people aware of our permission to contact. Recruitment, I think, it's one of the things that everyone has a challenge with, and it still is a challenge. But hopefully we are making headway, and with our permission to contact and letting people know that there is research going on in Scotland, and it's your choice whether you want to take part or not, but we have to obviously offer the opportunity to do that. So we are really, I would say that's the biggest challenge, from my point of view, is recruiting people into studies and getting enough people on.
And I love that kind of, I love that consent to contact approach, which is a little bit of a catch-all, isn't it? It's not just necessarily about recruitment into trials. It's about participating in the research process if people want to, or just getting news on that. And of course, if you're in England, you've mentioned it already, there is Join Dementia Research. We had if you're a researcher, we had a live stream with the team from them a couple of weeks ago in our community app. Get another plug for the community, where you can find out the process for how they can support you with study recruitment as well. through the service. But so the main message here is, and also as well, we talk about this. This isn't just for the public. Of course, I'm participant in a research study. If you're watching this and a researcher, you know, I mean, lead by example. You fill in that form yourself as a participant, because there are lots of studies, not necessarily just for people living with a neurodegenerative disease, but for people to give your opinions, to talk about care or prevention or support. And so if you're watching this and you're a researcher, fill that form in as well. We'll put a link. We should put a link up. We've got the QR code in there up in the top corner to the network. Let's find your let's just pop your slides on again and see if we can find that link to your form. There it is.
It's the take part in research at the bottom right of that slide. That's the QR code that takes you directly into permission to contact.
So I'm gonna do some jiggery pokery now, and I'm gonna take a picture of that I'm gonna scan that QR code myself. There we go. And then I'm gonna forward that to myself as an email. And then I'm gonna pop that up on the screen for people as a QR code so that you can, there we go. You see where we've got all the technologies. And you mentioned the GP,
the pilot
text messaging as well. So here we are. I'm going to drop this into the chat for people, which is the kind of lowest end of technology, isn't it? On a most basic level, I think I know my parents will read text messages, and that was particularly successful.
Yeah, we weren't sure, obviously, how it would work, but we're really pleased that so many people, we've reached out to so many people, and they're really interested in taking part. Like I said, whether that be in a clinical trial or partners in research, but they're really keen to be involved, which is a really, exciting for us to know that we're still out there, we're reaching more people all the time, which is great. Like we may pilot it with other sites, but we just have to wait and see once we've got all the numbers back, then, and look at the percentages of people, what disease area they have, so we can look at, this is the way forward for us. But it's just another tool in our toolkit to give people the opportunity to be part of research. It's just another toolkit thing.
So we've got that in the top right hand corner. So if you're watching this on your mobile device, you can take a quick screen grab and scan that QR code in the top corner. That'll take you to the consent to contact form. If you're living in Scotland, anywhere in Scotland, and you're watching this, everybody can do that right now. It takes 5 minutes to do, and you entirely in control of what you'll be contacted about, whether that's studies or participation or different, where your interests lie. And so that's a great way to get involved. What about, how do the researchers fill in their form? Is this something else? Am I going to have to do another QR code now, or do you have an email address that we can share with people?
Is that for Enrich?
Well, just for researchers that are looking to recruit from with you, whether it's in various ways. Give us an email address as a starting point.
The email address for the network would take you into the NDN and into Enrich. There's to actually give you the.
You're looking it up now. Do I have to put this back on the screen again? Where is there an email address on there? No, it's. Just...
I think if you go to the one that I did with Enrich, I think that's got an email.
There we go. There we go.
T.enrichscotland@nhs.scot, and I think I'm pretty sure it's t.ndn@nhs.scot. Am I right in saying that?
So if you're a researcher wanting to recruit, that's a great starting point to get in touch.
Mm-hmm.
We've got just a couple of minutes left, and last chance for anybody watching to ask questions. But you've done a brilliant job in kind of talking through what the network does, how it really connects people with a whole range of studies, and how you have staff spread throughout Scotland based in the NHS to practically support delivery of those studies. Which is brilliant. And that can, as you say, be everything from looking at how to prevent falls in care homes, or right at the other extent, the latest cutting edge biomarker studies and drug trials. So what do you hope, where do you want the network to be in the kind of next 5 years? Last big question. What I mean, you did you showed a slide earlier, Emma, about what your plans is, but clearly such an important topic is addressing those inequalities in research access that you've put a massive focus on, and all credit to you for doing that for the LGBTQ plus communities, or for lower income families, and people who face those health inequalities, racial communities.
I think in the next 5 years, if we can encourage people who are in some of these underserved communities, or all of these underserved communities, we're talking 5 years' time here, and they become part of what we're doing, I think that would be tremendous. And being able to recruit to studies, as Jacqui says, recruitment, as long as I've worked in this field, recruitment is always the kind of the bugbear. That's what everybody talks about. Round and round we go in circles. Recruitment, recruitment, recruitment. So to be able to have a study startup and to be able to instantly recruit to it, that's what we would want to see, because we've got people waiting to be part of these studies. And of course, that we're on the way to seeing some of these amazing treatments for dementia, particularly for dementia, but also Parkinson's, motor neuron disease. So it's all moving on. It's all, we're at a really exciting time in the research at the moment. So let's see that all coming to fruition, because people are being part of studies, and the way to get the studies into the clinical domain is to run the studies as quickly as we can.
Exactly.
So,
the quicker you can find people and discover whether a treatment is effective or not, the quicker it will find its way into mainstream care, and everybody watching, whether you're a researcher or somebody living with motor neuron disease or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, whatever it is, you can all participate in this and play your part to make sure we get those treatments as quickly as possible. And Emma and Jacqui are waiting. And if you're a jobbing NHS professional that wants to become involved in the research process, to kind of look at your career and interested in going to work with Emma and Jacqui on that process, get in touch, because we need more clinical researchers.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Sure.
I think that's all we've got time for today. But you did brilliant. This was brilliant. Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I kind of want to do the same thing now with the other parts, because we should say, of course, that you have an equivalent in England. In England we have, and that's a new thing as well. They've got they've just recontracted, so there is a NHS clinical delivery service across England. So again, the NIHR in England is there to support you if you want to get involved in your research career, or if you want to participate in trials. And there is NRICH. The NRICH Scotland network is also across all different parts of England as well. If you go to enrich.nihr.ac.uk, you'll find details for that as well. Or drop me a message and I'll signpost you to wherever you need to go to find what you need. Thank you so much, Emma and Jacqui.
Thank you.
That was brilliant. And that's all we've got time for today. We're going to be back with another live stream in our community app tomorrow in our salon, where we're going to be talking about how to overcome failure and disappointment in your research careers, if that's something that's of interest to you. And then we're also back again on Thursday, because all this week we're turning a spotlight on innovation and how you might be able to take your research findings and transform that into a new company or service or product with the support of Alzheimer's Society. So we've got another live stream on Thursday as well to learn about how Alzheimer's Society are helping innovators with those products. So do check out our website, dementiaresearcher.nihr.ac.uk, for all that information, and join our community, which you'll find Dementia Researcher in your community app. Thank you, Emma and Jacqui. This is brilliant.
Thank you.
We'll look forward